Hey guys, what is up? Alex Scott here with Consordini.com. Thanks so much for checking out another one of our video reviews. Today we are taking a look at the Softube Volume 2 plugin bundle. Specifically, we are going to be taking a look at the effects plugins contained within the Volume 2 bundle. I absolutely love the Softube stuff. If you've seen the video on the channel of the Console 1, then you will know that I'm a huge fan of pretty much everything Softube makes. And the Volume 2 bundle is a really quick, easy, and really inexpensive way to get into using a ton of their plugins on your projects. Now, it comes with a ton of dynamics and EQ, a bunch of great mixing stuff, but it also comes with a few really awesome effects plugins, reverbs, flangers, delays, stuff like that. So that's what I want to go over real quick in this video, just show you guys a couple of my favorites. We can listen to how they sound. I've got a session pulled up with just some really basic drums. So let's go ahead and check out what Softube has here for us. So, as I said, there's quite a few kind of mixing-oriented plugins in here, and we've covered those on the channel before, the dynamics stuff, the EQ stuff, and all that stuff, of course, integrates with the Console 1, which is great. But when you get your Volume 2 subscription, you'll also see that it comes with a bunch of great effects plugins. We've got the Fix Doubler, the Fix Flanger, the Fix Phaser, modular effects, which modular also kind of pairs with the modular VSTi that Softube has, which is a modular synthesizer as a plug-in instrument. Very cool. We have saturation knob, which is an incredibly useful tool for getting a little bit of distortion or saturation into your sound. We have a fantastic tape emulator that's very similar to the Slate virtual tape machines. We have two killer reverbs, the TSAR-1 and the TSAR-1R, and then the tube delay, which is a lot of fun. Now, the Fix Doubler, let's just go ahead and kind of start at the top here. The Doubler is pretty much exactly what you would expect. This is great for vocals, it's great for guitars, any kind of melodic instrument where you want to get, not necessarily a chorus kind of a sound, but, you know, add a double. So if you want to feel like there's maybe two vocal parts where you had only recorded one, or maybe a couple of acoustic guitars or something, it's excellent for that. I have it pulled up on drums right now, which is obviously a bit of an unusual way to do it, but hey, sometimes we put flange on drums. So here's our drums dry. And then bring in the doubler. And we have a mix knob, which lets us mix from wet to dry. And, you know, like with a lot of doublers, it's a little bit more subtle than a chorus or a phaser or something like that. It really just gives a little bit of extra width, a little bit of extra girth to the sound. We can make it even more pronounced with this delay offset, where it's going to, you know, it's doubling the signal and moving the time around just a tiny bit. And this delay offset is going to let you vary the amount that you're delaying your signal by. We have sweep and then rate, which gets more into a chorusy kind of a sound. But it's a really great, simple tool, again, to bring in a vocal double, a guitar double, something like that. If you wanted kind of unique drum sound, you could definitely use it there as well. Moving right along, we have the Fix Flanger. Again, all these Fix plugins, this kind of little Fix series, they all have a very similar visual style. They were all designed by Paul Wolf, as you can see here from the mind of Paul Wolf. And they're very easy to use. They're meant to be just quick, practical solutions when you need effects like this, when you need a flanger, when you need a phaser. You can just reach for it. There's enough controls to really dial it into how you want, but not so many controls and options that you get overwhelmed. So this is, you know, again, pretty typical flanger. And you even have some nice kind of manual controls of the flanging here, so you can control the sync of what the flanger is doing. We have wet, dry, of course. You do have a few more options here than we do in the doubler, so you can really dial it in. But again, I like that even though they're offering you a lot of options in this guy, they've really kept it simple enough to where you're not going to get overwhelmed by too many options. Fix Phaser. Very similar again to the last two. And there, if you bring the mix all the way up, you can hear that phaser effect. You can get stuff, some really nice stereo motion, and even use it almost as like a Leslie you know, you can do a lot of really, really cool stuff with this. Great for, you know, more extreme vocal processing, guitar processing, that kind of stuff. We have options for phase offset. We have options for the amount of sweep that it's doing. So where it's moving in the stereo field, either full, left to right, staying mono, or anything in between. You can change the shape of the envelope, all kinds of great stuff. But again, the Fix series, it's all about simplicity. It's all about having the tools that you need and being able to just pull them up and get a great tone going pretty much right away. So that's the Fix stuff. Now, moving on from there, this is one of my absolute favorite plugins because it is dead simple and it's incredibly useful. If you're like me, you probably love the sound of analog and the feel of analog gear, right? I think we all do. And this saturation knob is an incredibly easy way to just bring either a little bit of saturation, excuse me, or even push it all the way into distortion. And we basically have 3 settings for saturation type and then amount. We have low, neutral, and high. And this kind of changes where in the frequency spectrum it's going to be focused. So when we're in low, it's going to be a darker timbre of saturation into distortion. Neutral is neutral, and then high is going to accentuate a little bit more of the top end. So this is out right now, but here, let's bring in the low saturation. You can hear it just brings out a lot of really, really nice richness. It makes it feel really pretty authentically analog. So that's low, pushing up to neutral. You can hear the frequencies have been shifted a little bit more towards the mids, and then for keep high. That makes it that much more pronounced and pushes out a little bit more of the top end of the saturation. And of course, you can dial it into taste. You can do everything from really subtle all the way to pretty extreme and destructive distortion, if that's the sound that you're going for. Again, I love plugins like that. It's so simple, it's so quick, it's so easy, and it does exactly what you want it to do right off the bat. So that's saturation. Now we also have tape here, which again, this is something very much in the style of the Slate virtual tape machines, if you guys have used that. It is tape emulation. And this one, I do like it. It's very, very subtle in terms of what it's doing. If you really push it, you can start to hear, you know, if we take it all the way down to 1.5 IPS and really drive all this stuff, you can definitely hear it doing some stuff, but it is very, very subtle. This is something I would use more in maybe a mastering context to just add a little bit of vibe or kind of feel coloration to your track overall. I do think it's very, very good for that. I do wish that it was a little bit more pronounced than what it did, though. I do find myself reaching for the tape, or the Slate VTM a little bit more often than this one. But if you don't have the Slate stuff, it is certainly a usable alternative. So after tape, I'm going to save these reverbs for last because I absolutely love the TSAR-1 and TSAR-1R reverbs. So let's just take a quick look at tube delay. Tube delay is really, really cool. Used on its own, it is a bit extreme, as you'll hear. So I do like to set it up as a throw on a separate channel, or do some kind of a split where I can get a wet dry mix going on. And there is a wet dry in here, but it's nicer to set it up on a second channel, if you ask me. But we can take a look to what it's doing here. As you can see, even with it set to dry, it's doing a lot to the signal. And we can turn the tempo sync on here. We can drive stuff separately. We have treble and bass tone controls. It's an amazing, super vintage sounding delay, especially if you love really like slapbacky type, kind of like 50s vibe stuff. It is absolutely perfect for that. It's great on vocals. Again, if you're going for kind of an old school or like a grungy feel, rockabilly feel, anything in that wheelhouse, this is like the best delay I have. For sure. Because it's such a saturated sound, I don't use it on everything, but when it is called for and when I need this kind of sound, really grungy, especially for slapback stuff, there's nothing better. A lot of delays, especially plug-in delays like stock delays that come, I use PreSonus Studio One here, and the stock delay that comes with it is fantastic, but it doesn't have a lot of character, and it doesn't really have option for a lot of characters. So if I'm doing like an electronic thing and I just want a nice clean delay for a synth or something, that's great. But sometimes we want our delays to feel and sound like an old tube tape delay, that kind of a thing. And this one does just a phenomenal job. So that's with. There's dry again. And very cool lo-fi vibe. So that's tube delay. Now we come to, in my opinion, the kind of piece de resistance of the Softube Volume 2 effect stuff. This is TSAR-1, their reverb. TSAR is short for True Stereo Algorithmic Reverb, and this is such a phenomenal sounding reverb. It really is. Dry. It just really sounds like a fabulously high quality digital verb. It does sound digital. It is not really, to my ear, is not one of these reverbs that like sounds exactly like a cathedral or a hall or something like that. It is much more in the like kind of lexicon ish kind of a thing where it is a digital verb, but it's a great sounding digital verb. It reminds me of a lot of the verb tones that we heard on records made in like the late 80s and into the 90s. And I work on a lot of stuff that is kind of influenced by those decades of music. If we think about units like the Lexicon 480, this is definitely in a similar wheelhouse tonally. But it's the reason I love it so much, A, it sounds great, but B, it has all the features that I want to use in a reverb to sculpt the tone of it, and none that I don't. We have pre-delay, we have decay time, we have density, which just, the number of reflections happening in the verb. We have tone, dark to bright with neutral in the middle. We have a high cut option, which controls the top end of the verb. And then we can blend between early reflections and the reverb tail itself. We have another kind of option to mess with the diffusion. And if we want to modulate the reverb, we can. And then, of course, wet dry mix. The only thing TSAR-1 doesn't have that I wish it did was a high pass on the reverb, so that I could, when I'm using it on a drum kit, I could filter out some of the lows. But it actually handles low frequencies really, really well. As you can hear, a lot of reverbs, when you put them on a drum kit, they get really bogged down with the kick, and the low frequency content of your signal starts to get really, really muddy. Not so with TSAR-1. So I do wish it had that high pass feature, but the fact that it's lacking is not really a huge problem because it deals so well with low frequencies. And we can make it darker. It can do the silly super epic tail if we want it to. Sounds great. Pre-delay, again, everything that you would expect and need from a great reverb, but no fluff. A lot of times I will see reverb plugins and they just have a million different options. They've got all kinds of EQing and like spatial simulation stuff, and that can be great, but more often than not, when I want a reverb I want something that's going to be quick and simple to set up and quick and simple to get the tone that I want out of. And that is absolutely TSAR-1. It sounds great. It has everything I need, nothing that I don't. And yeah, it's just a fantastic sounding reverb. Now, the last plugin we'll take a look at, which is basically just a stripped down version of TSAR-1, is the TSAR-1R. This is kind of the even faster, even simpler version. Here we just have pre-delay, verb time, which, you know, instead of labeling it in milliseconds, you do have that up here, but we have from a studio room, which is going to be like a really small, tight room, all the way out to large hall. And, you know, if you care, you do have a reference in seconds there, hundredths of a second. Bright, neutral, or dark color, mix, and then output volume. So this one, it's the same algorithm, but it's got even fewer controls and it's a little bit less processor intensive. I appreciate that they included that, but I've never had a problem with TSAR-1 being overly processor intensive, like the full version of it, which is another testament to how great Softube's programming is and how great their algorithm is. I can have 10 instances of TSAR-1 open, you know, if I've got a really big session. I can have 10 instances, excuse me, can't talk today, 10 instances of it open in a single session, and it doesn't bog anything down. I don't get any playback glitches. I don't get, you know, much latency. It's really, really great. So that is a quick overview for you guys of all of the effects or kind of special effects that come with Softube Volume 2, the plugin subscription. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I adore Softube. To the ends of the earth, I adore Softube. I use the console one. You guys can't see it because it's sitting right in front of me here. I use it on literally every single project that comes in my door. As soon as I got the console one and fell in love with it, you can see it. It's so excited to get involved. As soon as I got the console one, I knew that I had to check out Softube's other plugins, and their EQ and dynamics plugins that come with Volume 2 all integrate with the console one. So if you're a console one user, right there, you should probably already have the Volume 2 because it gives you, you know, more options for EQ, more options for dynamics, all that kind of stuff. But it also, conveniently enough, comes with these amazing modulation, reverb, delay plugins. It doesn't have a ton. You know, there are definitely bundles, like the Slate bundle comes with a couple different reverbs. I think it does only also have one delay. But there are plugin bundles that will come with more of this type of stuff, like the Eventide bundle would be another great example. It has a ton of reverbs and delays and stuff in it. But where Softube is lacking in, like, all kinds of different plugins, it really makes up for it in the quality of the individual plugins. So cannot endorse it strongly enough. If you're a console one user, it's a no-brainer, but even for anybody else, it's really just a great bundle that I think you guys will really enjoy using and find very inspiring. But what do you guys think of the Softube Volume 2 plugin bundle? Do you like the Softube stuff? Do you not like it? Do you prefer other stuff? Do you have other plugins that are in this bundle that are your favorite? We would love to hear anything you guys have to say in the comments down below. Always appreciate hearing from you. Again, my name is Alex Scott here with Consordini.com. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we will see you in the next one.